Well, hello there. How are you
Hi,
doing there? this evening?
doing good, Chris. Doing good. Hello, buddy. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome, Kathy. Welcome, Little Twisted. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, everybody's doing okay. Everybody's tuning in. So,
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, everybody. Thanks for coming. I know it's been a crazy week, huh? Lots of crazy energy, weather things, some really interesting political things. I had a friend of mine calling and just in a panic. She's like, "Oh my God, all these things are happening, all these oversights and organizations that were meant to, keep control, they're being disbanded and getting rid of." And I was like, "Hey, it's part of the democratic process, when you own the when you have the Congress on your side and the Supreme Court on your side and you have the executive branch on your side, you pretty much can do whatever you want. And we voted them all in. So, we have to deal with the consequences. We just have to hope for the best, as we go forward.
Right.
And just make sure that we keep ourselves as much in balance as possible. And we still make the right choices, right? We may not like a lot of things that are happening, but we do live, thank God, in a country where we can express our opinions and we do have free speech and we have the ability to vote and make changes. So all right, stop getting your Snickers in a twit. It's like, it's all right. We're going to survive. We've certainly been through all kinds of things over the years as a nation. We'll certainly get through this, right? So
Right.
um,
Absolutely.
that that was just cracking me up. But the other thing that hit me, I think I mentioned earlier before the show briefly with you, was about I've been watching a lot of these episodes of Ancient Aliens, and it's just been getting my mind totally engaged in a way that it hasn't been in a while, thinking about some of these different things. And one of the episodes was actually called The Chosen. And the whole episode was asking the question, are we somehow predetermined or chosen by our genetics, by our aptitude, by our intelligence, by our life situation, by our willingness, whatever? Are we chosen to be of service by these interdimensional beings, these benevolent forces? And they're like, oh, yeah, you. Or do we choose to volunteer and say, hey, I want to be part of this effort? Or is it what I think it is more of a collaborative type of thing on a soul level where we are saying, yes, willing to help. And they kind of look through and say, oh, you have the skills I need. Oh, you have the right kind of energy for this project. Oh, you're in the right place, right time. How about you? So I think it's kind of a partnership on that. Do you have any thoughts about that versus are we chosen and kind of tapped and said, yeah, hey, you, or do we kind of choose and volunteer? Or is it that kind of combination? Do you have any thoughts
Well,
on that?
a lot of people think that we are their experiment, right?
Right.
That, yeah, that they are watching us. And that's why that all these civilizations in the past have been wiped out and restarted.
Right. Right.
So that is a lot of theories. So I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So well, as far as like ones that were wiped out, they were talking about Atlantis, and that they mentioned somebody on one of the episodes. They literally found a whole cache of these metallic bars that they thought were gold, but once they had them tested, it was a combination of gold and copper, and they called it orichalcum. And they said that in Atlantis, that gold copper combination was used to do all kinds of things because copper is extremely conductive and gold is a great communicator and an energy transference. And so it was a metal that was used for all kinds of their technology. So it got me thinking about like, I don't like, you can't go to a store and buy orichalcum, right? There's some in some
Right.
museum where they found it, right? So I actually found, and I also watched an episode and they were talking about sacred geometry. and the significance of different symbols and how certain symbols hold power. And so it's just getting me thinking about all that stuff, you know? So I actually have a little copper Merkaba, and this thing weighs, it's solid copper. And what a Merkaba is basically imagine two intertwined pyramids. So if you look at it in one plane, you can see a pyramid. And then if you twist it, there's like another pyramid that's kind of superimposed through it. So the Merkaba is a sacred symbol that was historically used for transporting consciousness and perhaps actual physicality of beings to different places. So like movies, like what was that one called? Was it called Contact, I think? Where they used a Merkaba. Jodie Foster was in it.
Yes,
and,
Contact.
Right. And so like, you know, they physically traveled as well as emotionally, spiritually, consciousness-wise expanded, traveled. And then when I went to Egypt years ago, I bought a little gold ankh and a cartouche with my name in it out of gold. I thought, well, all right, if this is Merkaba's a double pyramid, and that's that of the copper, and these other little guys are Egyptian gold, well, maybe I'll just hold these all together. And I'll tell you, when I'm meditating with it and holding it in my hand, my whole palm chakra gets so hot and activated. And I started to see like swirling colors behind my closed eyes, and different things are starting to kind of open up. So I have no idea. I'm going to play around with it. I was curious if anybody in the audience, you know, listening today has ever played with stuff like that, you know, sacred geometry symbols, or if you actually have a piece of the orichalcum or messed around with copper and gold. So if you have, put something in the chat. I'd love to hear about it. But this whole thinking about sacred geometry got me thinking about all the symbols. And, you know, almost every symbol we have that means anything goes way the heck back, right? You know, even the ankh, right, was the cross with the infinity loop on the top of it to represent eternal life, right? And it also represented power because it was the staff that the pharaohs held. And it was supposedly their way of communicating and connecting to their gods. So I thought, okay, that's interesting. And like a 5-pointed star, right? The pentagram, well, that's been around again, like forever. And it represented the 5 points of man, the head, the extended arms, the extended feet. Like if you think of the Leonardo da Vinci drawing of man, you know, so that's a symbol that's been around for a while, you know. And then the sacred geometry of, well, you have a circle, which is oneness, right? Because it's just a continual line, right? And then you go to 3-dimensional ones and you get the triangle would be the next one. Well, what's the point of the triangle? Well, that's the unity of body, mind, and spirit. And like even just meditating on some of these very simple shapes and forms can be very instrumental in shifting perspectives and awareness and expanding awareness. So, and then if you take the triangle and you turn it 3D, right, then that becomes our pyramid. So we talked about pyramids before, about the manifesting power of it, the grounding of it, the communication abilities of it. So that's kind of cool, you know. And so anyway, it's just intriguing to me that, you know, you can look around everywhere, and then even patterns that repeat, like the Fibonacci series or fractals, right? There's like, you can see certain patterns. The Fibonacci sequences, it makes kind of like a spirally, elongated spiral. And we see this all over the place, whether it's in galaxies, whether it's in molecules. And you're like, huh, you know, so when they say as above, so below, they weren't kidding, right? You know, it's like, oh, wait, that universe that's doing that, that's the same thing that's happening on a cellular level in my body, or in this leaf, or, you know, in this thing that's here on the earth. So it's really an interesting topic. I'm not sure where it's going to lead, but I'm going to probably dive into that and quantum physics a little bit, because even things like the quantum entanglement, or wait, even before that, the whole observer effect, right? Have you all heard about the observer effect? This is where that everything is moving in a wave until it's observed. And the minute it's observed, it stops, it solidifies into this point of time of, oh, that's what I'm observing. And so this, to me, is very curious, because if we're all this energy that's flowing, well, what gets us to become something more than this energy field is our interactions with each other. It's the observing of each other, and it's the seeing of each other. Like, I see your soul, I see your spirit, I recognize and appreciate you for the expression that you are of energy in this world and in this field, right? So I think there's some concepts, and the particle study, yeah, exactly, Twisted. There's a cool thing, and that goes with the entanglement, so that if you have two particles and you send them both through like little slits, they act the same way, right? And if you separate them by a bunch of distances, it doesn't matter how far apart they are. What happens to one seems to happen to the other. And it's such a scientific proof. And I know I'm kind of butchering the science of it, but I'll get better by next time, because I'm going to brush up a little bit on the quantum physics so I can speak more intelligently about it. But it's just, the idea was exciting to me of, oh, wait a minute. There's so many parts of science that actually bear out and help prove that we are all connected, that what happens to you in Indiana now is going to be felt by everybody who's watching this. What's happening to me here in Wisconsin is going to be experienced on some level of energy by anybody who's tuned into this, whether it's live tonight or whether it's on a recording tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year. And that's interesting, because that's the whole concept of time, that, time, we measure it for a certain reason, but there's really not that concept, other than what we make of it. And so isn't that interesting? Somebody a year from now might be watching this tape and going, yeah, I feel it. What are you feeling? It's been floating around in the ethers all this time? No, there is no time. You're feeling it now because you're watching it now. And so there's some really interesting metaphysical concepts that now science are bearing out, or has been bearing out for a while with the quantum physics study and even beyond. I just thought it's very interesting to me how it all kind of comes together, and how our prior ancient civilizations knew all this stuff. And it's like, okay, was part of the master plan of, wiping out, with the Great Flood, or major cataclysms, was part of wiping all that out to give us a chance to kind of rediscover stuff again and say, okay, maybe we got to a point where, I believe one of the theories of the reason for the flood was that there was too many experiments gone bad, like you look back at the mythological beasts that had popped over, like centaurs and minotaurs and all this kind of stuff, or the Nephilim, the giants. And so these beings, if people are saying, yeah, you know what, we thought this mating of the gods or the children of the gods with the Homo sapiens would be a good idea, but boy, we got some really unexpected results. And what would happen if we took some of the DNA from a bull or a stallion and we implanted that into an embryo, and now you have this, half man, half beast thing that you see in a lot of the cave drawings and paintings and mythology. And so if in hindsight they're like, yeah, it wasn't such a good idea, and they're like, let's do a clean slate. Okay, I can understand that, and it's it is scary to think like they have the technology to essentially, let's restart everything, control the weather that much that they could, create that kind of chaos on the earth. But supposedly too, as far as the dinosaurs, they had to wipe out the dinosaurs so that man could thrive. Because if that comet didn't come, and precipitate the ice age and wipe out all the dinosaurs, we probably wouldn't be here because they would be the master predators. There's no way we would have evolved, because of that. So, did they actually send the comet that, it was just the right size to create enough of an ice age that the dinosaurs would die out, but, in places they could reseed the earth. And then there was another show that talked about little like baby comets that were sent here, and inside the comets were like proteins. And they're like, is this how they seeded life on the planet? Because these little teeny orbs were like everywhere and found all over the earth. And when they would open them up inside that metallic outside that was needed to travel through space was like a liquid proteiny kind of substance that they were hypothesizing was part of what started life. So, when we're looking at this, guys, as far as, okay, what does this mean to us as we're going through our day-to-day life? Probably not a lot, when it comes to like going to work and doing your stuff. But if it helps us kind of understand, not necessarily our place in the universe, but helps us understand that we are part of something that is far greater than most of us have ever been taught, right? Like, if this universe is such a thriving place of interdimensional beings and life and all kinds of powers that are out there, and whether we're their science experiment or we're them that were transplanted here to prosper because it's a really wonderful planet and this was an ideal place to let more of the civilization evolve, I don't know. I know religions around the world say one thing, although different religions say different things, right? You think about it, like the Hindu religions, they talk about this whole pantheon of gods. You go back to the ancient Greeks, they had their pantheon of gods. It's like, oh, so we're all these visitors coming down, and how dare we look at their history and call it mythology just because we can't conceive or have open enough mind to say, oh, so these gods that were having a war in the sky and there was all these lightning flashes and toxic, glowing clouds and all of this, like, oh, that was actually real. Well, why would we assume that they lied and made all this stuff up? And why would we also find similar accounts and similar happenings in vastly different cultures scattered throughout the entire globe? All right. So it's really important for us not to get locked in to a certain way of thinking of, oh, this is how it has to be, when we really don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. And some of the pieces of the puzzle have been trivialized and said, oh, no, that's not history. That can't be real. Like, for example, even something like Atlantis. How many of y'all believe Atlantis was real? I do, right? Why? Because Plato talked about it in his writings. He talked about the island of Atlantis and the people that were there and the technology that was there and the amazing things that happened and how advanced the civilization was. Plato wrote it. We're not talking about Joe Schmo. We're talking about a really smart Greek guy, right? And it's part of, it's documented. So what, did people think like, Plato was smoking something that day and just made it up and, wrote this whole thing? No, right? This is really, that was there. So for us, thousands of years later, to be dismissive and say, oh, no, that couldn't possibly be. That's so arrogant of us. And it holds us in this place of ignorance. It's really important. Yeah. And Twisted, you're right. A lot of times people are shown research and facts and they'll be like, oh, no, that can't be, right? Because it rattles their view of the world too much. And I truly believe that's part of the reason why the governments that have been working with the benevolent interdimensional beings and the alien cultures for decades at least, if not centuries, part of the reason they don't want it to be common knowledge is because they're afraid it's going to precipitate a panic because most people do not want to change their worldview. They believe what they believe, and they're in this particular mindset, and they don't want to change. And if their beliefs are such a core part of how they define themselves in their life, and you say, oh, by the way, you know that whole religious thing that you believed? Not quite right. There's this whole new thing that this is how it really was, or this is how it really is. It's going to rock their world. And I guess the governments just don't want to take a chance that, for the most part, the civilizations are mature enough to be able to hold two things at once. And I've thought about, I said, well, what would it mean to me if the spaceship comes on down and it's a benevolent one, and they communicate and they say, yep, you know what? We've been watching this planet. Matter of fact, you are us from thousands of years ago that, we sent our ancestors to colonize your planet, and we've watched your evolution, and, we've been here guiding you the whole time. How would that change my spiritual beliefs? And I'm like, I don't think it would. Now I know that there's some fundamentalist religious types that would feel very threatened by anything like that happening, because it would be like, but wait a minute, how could this be? But I don't think it necessarily changes anything at the core of most of the religions. So like Christianity, for example. So if we say, okay, so what if Jesus was a star brother? What if he came from a different planet, or was sent back to a different planet? Who cares? Right? He was still showing us a way to live our life as Christians. And, that's cool. Buddha. What if Buddha was actually an alien who came down to show people how to get into that expanded state of mind? Does that change the benefits of, or does that make people not want to have the benefits of meditation and of living that, the tenfold path, or, the different principles that they live their life by? The Hindus, they would probably be like, woohoo, see, told you, whole bunch of pantheon of gods. We never gave up on that. Native Americans. How many of the Native Americans hold, and the Aborigines and the, what's the other one that's in New Zealand? Maori. They hold and tell the stories. They have the oral traditions as well as the writings and the cave paintings and whatnot. They have the oral traditions as well, that, and their history of, we are from the star people. The star people came to us. The star people taught us. They came down from the heavens, right? Why don't we believe these people? Again, do we think they were all smoking something and not like, just made it up for kicks and giggles, So I don't think it would shatter their religion. That would be very validating to them and saying, yeah, we told you there was brothers and sisters that came down from the stars. And as far as a God who created us, or a source or a creator, well, even if it turned out we were some sort of genetic experiment of these other benevolent interdimensional beings, my feeling would be, well, who created them? Who created this universe that is so amazing with all these worlds and planets? There has to be a first source. There has to be an initiating something somewhere, right? And so whether you call that God or Heavenly Father or Great Spirit or the One or the Source, or, again, I don't think any of that would change if the aliens reveal, hey, you know what? We've been here all along, and we mean you no harm, right? Unless you guys really screw it up so much that we have to restart. And that should be the wake-up call to people, like, hey, let's not mess up our planet, guys, because if they have to choose between preserving us or preserving the planet can't be replaced. We can. So let's do our part to make sure we're contributing positive energy, positive love vibrations, healing vibrations. And in our little part of the world, you plant a tree, you plant some flowers, you add to it, you don't take away, right? You try to do that. Make your impact a net positive versus anything else. All right. So that's kind of that's been my mind ramblings for the week. Anything you want to share, Grizzly, before I go into the cards that I picked for today?
No, it sounds great. Totally agree with you. And I think you're onto something. And a lot of
Cool.
people in the comments agree with you as well.
Cool. All right. So as usual, beforehand, I offered a quick prayer and I asked Spirit to inspire some cards and messages that hopefully will touch your hearts, inspire you, and ring true on some level for you that are listening or watching, whenever you're listening or watching, whether it's live tonight or tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now or whenever, right? So the first card that came up was the card of discernment, the angel card. And discernment means sensing what feels right or wrong and trusting your judgment and acting on it. Part of the reason it's important for us to develop our intuition is so that we can have better discernment that utilizes more than just our thoughts. It's true intuition and true discernment uses our intelligence, our thoughts, our heart, our emotions, how we feel about it, and our gut, that intuitive knowing. And so when we combine the heart, the head, the heart, and the gut, we can make really smart decisions. And it's important to have discernment because sometimes something that may seem really good in the short term, when you take a step back and you run it through those 3 filters, you're like, you know what? In the long term, that probably is not going to serve because it'll act as a distraction, or it may send me down a different path and take me away from the one that I've chosen that I feel is my life purpose, and I need to stay true to that. The next card that I chose was the law of attraction. Each thought is an investment that pays immediate dividends, so be sure to invest wisely. You have the power to choose your thoughts and align them with love, peace, and harmony. So that law of attraction, we've talked about this a little bit before, that there's a metaphysical truth that where your thoughts go, energy flows. It says even in like texts like the Bible, as you think, thus you are, right? We've been told this in scripture. We've been told this with metaphysical proofs and axioms. That law of attraction really does hold true. So you want to be very clear about where are you sending your thoughts? What are you bringing into your life? If you are constantly focused on negativity, you're going to attract more negativity. If you're focused on service and contributing and growing and creativity and being the best you can be, more of that's going to show up. So it's really important that we take the time to wake up, right? Become self-aware enough of what am I thinking about, consciously and unconsciously. Where am I putting my energy? What am I creating with what I'm holding on to? What am I attracting to me into my life, good or bad? And one of the nicest ways to attract something that you want is to have the gratitude and kind of give thanks that it's already happening. That kind of is like, yeah, you know what? I am so grateful for the prosperity that's flowing into my life. You know, doesn't matter if the prosperity at the moment are nickels and dimes and you need it to be tens of thousands, right? Be grateful for where it is and be focused on it's going to get better, even more. I'm watching for opportunities. Oh, thank you. And that kind of greases it along the way. The next oracle card I chose was growth. And this says development, expansion, and healing. This is seek these new areas for learning. Relax and take things less personally and grow naturally into a greater sense of self. Have more confidence in the you that you're becoming. So this is kind of ties together, right? We have discernment. What do we want? What's going on out there? Making sure we use our head, our heart, and our gut. The law of attraction says, so whatever we're focused on with our head, our heart, and our gut, that's what's going to show up in our life. And if it's the right kind of things for our soul and our soul's purpose, it's going to lead to some growth and to some positive shifts happening for us going forward. So then I picked 3 tarot cards, and I got the same one as last week for the past, which is the 2 of Swords. And this is feeling like I have choices to make, but I don't feel like I know which way to go. And so I'm kind of still sitting on the fence. Then what helps us in the now is the 2 of Rods. And this says, as you listen to that intuition, right? And we just defined it as that coherence between what your intellect and your mind is saying, what your heart and emotions are feeling, and what your gut is knowing. So when you bring those 3 things together, the way is clear. The choices are clear. You know what to do. And then for the future, it's a bit of a warning because it's upside down. It's the Ace of Rods. It's saying, look, don't get so busy and stuck in the day-to-day grind that you don't take time to take a breath and think and ponder or meditate or pray or play or do something to shift your energy so that you can tune into what am I thinking, what am I feeling, what am I knowing, to make that intuitive assessment of where to go, who to trust, what projects to do, what to go into next. So those were the tarot cards. And then when I cracked open my book, The Portal to Potential, and this is a bunch of channeled, inspired writings that are designed to help you connect with a source of inspiration and guidance, get in touch with your own creativity, give you some comfort, and just kind of show you, remind you on a soul level, like, who are we, and what's possible. So I cracked it open, asking for what would be interesting to share tonight. And I got a section, really pretty section, pretty picture there, but a section that talks about this is the season of preparation for launch in many respects. The more you clear the clutter, the easier it will be as you create the time and space for joy and actively take time each day for gratitude and communing with spirit. The faster you will get to a point of peace, of power, and fulfillment in your life. There is much that spirit wishes to share and impart to and work through you when you are ready. We applaud and appreciate your willingness and desire to serve and be all that you are capable of being in the service of the light. Do not be so hard on yourself. Love and forgive yourself and others. Embrace the joy of each moment present for you and for all who choose to walk in the light. So when I read those, it really strikes a chord in me. Even now, when I first heard them and wrote them, it was like, yeah, that makes sense. But even right now, this feeling of preparation, coming out of the winter, I've been doing a lot of decluttering. I've been doing a lot of healing. I've been doing a lot of, okay, I got to prepare for what's coming, because I really feel like this year, 2025, especially from late spring on, is going to just be filled with opportunities and blessings and all kinds of amazing ways for us to shine our light and help each other out there. And so if you're feeling like, yeah, I feel like I'm just coming out of a long winter's nap, or, I was in quicksand and I finally got out and I'm cleaning off my boots and, I'm getting ready for the next phase, you're not alone. There seems to be this real energy out there that says, deal with your old shit, pardon me, and get on with whatever you need to do to become more empowered. Prepare yourself. Get rid of the old stuff that no longer serves you to clear the way for the empowerment of what will serve you and serve and help others as you go through life. The other part that jumped out at me is how much spirit applauds and appreciates our being willing to be of service to others. They know, because they're in spirit, how courageous it was for us to be the volunteers to say, yep, come on down. I'm going to come into this earth plane and I'm going to learn these lessons and I'm going to do these things. I'm going to find out and become even more of who I am through the following ways and life experiences and through the help and connections with these groups of people, right? So our desire to serve and be all that we can be, to fulfill the full measure of our creation, to fulfill the longings of our soul, and figure out what is our purpose and actually start doing that, that is noble. And spirit gives us the big thumbs up, like, yeah, you rock, you go, you're hang in there. It may feel tough, but you're on the right track. And then the last little bit of, don't be so hard on yourself. Love and forgive yourself and others. Embrace the joy of each moment that's present for you and for all who choose to walk in the light. So don't be so hard on yourself, right? Isn't that, it's so easy to say it. It's not so easy to do, right? Because I guess part of the way we're wired, especially in the Western cultures here, we have, since we were little, been, it's been drilled into us, the competitive model, or what's a vision of success, or what does it mean to be successful in relationships, in your jobs, in your health, in your home, and how you live and how you interact and how you travel. And like, there's this whole script of this is how it could and should be, if you're doing it right. But that's only through this worldview lens. There is so much joy and happiness that can come from the simplicity of service and the most simplest of lives. I remember I had an office mate when I worked in a corporation years ago, and she was from Ghana, and she would talk about her village, and she'd show me pictures of, and like, this is a place, I'm not kidding you, they still had to walk a mile to go fetch water in buckets and bring it back to the village, right? It's like, there are places in Africa that they don't have fresh running water, right? Like, we take that so for granted. We just walk into, our whatever room and we turn on the faucet and there's our water. But she was telling me, this is, and showing me pictures that the kids there, have very few clothes and very few toys. And, the families live in very simple means of not much more than huts, that they don't need it because of the elements that much, but still. But she said, but the people are happy. They're joy-filled. They love their lives. They don't have a concept of the rat race. They have this sense of community. They have this sense of balance with the land that they live on, and a connection with the stars and the star beings. And they are rich in history and rich in their folklore, and very much attuned to their ancestors. And you hear about that in a lot of cultures that have the dream time, or the ways that they reach out, vision quest, and ways to access back. And so I think, we think we have it so good because of all of the modern conveniences we have. We have to make sure that these things serve us, and that we don't become a slave to them, chasing them, getting more of them, getting bent out of shape if something happens where we don't have them anymore, right? That's not the source of our joy. Stuff should never be, on a surface level, stuff can be some sense of joy, right? I'm very joyful to be sitting in front of my fireplace and have wood for the fire and a nice house when it's minus 15 below outside, and I'm sitting there toasty, snuggled up on my couch with my dog in my lap and a blanket and a beautiful fire going. And I'm like, yeah, that was aesthetically very pleasing to me. Would my world be rocked if I didn't have that? I don't think so. But I appreciate it in the moment. But I wasn't like, oh, I have to have this, otherwise I am a failure. And I know we all put different measures of success on ourselves. And I wonder, and I want to kind of throw this out there, how different do you think your life would be if you knew and were okay with, I'm doing the best I can with what I have. I always try to do the right things. I try to be kind and generous and impact people in positive ways. And I'm going to just go through my life, whether it's simple or complicated. I'm not going to try to steer it. I'm just going to be grateful for the blessings I do have. And I will handle any challenges that come. And I'm just going to take it that way without expectation of it having to be a certain way, and giving ourselves the ability to allow versus force different paths. Where would the world be without the internet? Well, we would be less connected in some ways, but I can tell you, growing up without the internet, I had developed many, many friends and friendships and good relationships and professional relationships in the past, doing it all in person. And I'm not sure
Absolutely.
how the quality of the connections people make on the internet today compare to the richness of some of these lifelong deep friends that I've had from doing it in person. And so, you know, the internet is wonderful for accessing some information, although now who knows what's true or not true that's out there. Because when you have too much and there's no way to really tell, like, well, what's the fact or not? You know, it's like the subjective truth. I'm like, wait. A fact's a fact. Was the red light or green when you went through it? You know, it's like, you know, if we can roll back the tape, you can see it. Like, there's some things that are facts, right? There are back to the don't be so hard on yourself. There's a blessing that comes from allowing your path to unfold. And there's a certain wisdom that comes from that, because it takes some of the pressure off. So it's a balance, right? We have goals. We have an idea of, this is what my soul wants to do. This is who I want to become. This is the person I'm becoming, but I'm not quite there yet. And what's my job? Each day, do one small thing or take one small step in that direction. Keep my mind, eye on the prize, right? Keep my mind focused in that direction. So bit by bit, I'm going to get there. That's fine. That's the what. Where the allowing comes in is, do not try to control both the what you want and how that comes to you. Because if you try to control the how as well as the what, you may actually be tying your hands or slowing the process, or maybe even preventing the very thing you want from happening at all. Where if you say very clearly, okay, Spirit, this is where I want to end up, and I'm going to allow you to take me there. So I'm going to listen to your promptings. I'm going to be paying attention to the signs. I'm going to see what opportunities present themselves, and I will be a yes person to those opportunities, even if it seems like, I don't know how that came. I wasn't steering it that way, but okay, this is where the boat's going now. This is where we're going. And it's still going to lead me there. I can see how it can lead me there, but it might get me there faster. It might get me there with less effort. It might get me there with the help of other people that just showed up into my life. Like Mr. Grizzly, who just showed up in my life one day from a referral from a friend of a friend. And it was just like, ta-da, total turn in left field that I was concerned of, but it has changed my life because it brought me up to y'all and to doing the show every Wednesday night. And I love it. And it gives me a chance to think things in different ways and figure out, how do I want to articulate it? And how do I really feel about it? And what's important, not just to me, but as a teacher and an older person who's lived a lot of life, what can I share with somebody who may be just going through something I went through 20 years ago? And it's like, oh, I fell in that hole. Here's a rope. I know how to get out. Or, hey, yep, you know what? I still fall in that damn quicksand every time I go down that street. But I wear boots now, so my toes don't get all wet, right? So there's a wisdom to what we can share and how we can go and allowing things. So the most recent thing, and I'll share that. Thank you. The most recent thing that happened to me is, I'm a life coach, right? I have a retreat that's coming up in May in Sedona that I'll pitch and talk about it at another episode. I love teaching. I love doing the podcasting. I love writing. My last book was more for people. And lately it's like, nope, I have to focus on animals. And the next book that I'm writing, it's a book on dog training and the spiritual nature of dogs. And there's lots of chapters on just like animals in general and how we relate to them and the spiritual nature of them and how our souls connect and, that kind of stuff. And when I asked Spirit, I have like 3 other life coaching books, like ready to go. Right. And Spirit's like, no. The dog one will help you reach more people and help more people and get them open to listening to what you have to say. And so then afterwards, when you put out your next couple books on life coaching or how to practice faith or exercise faith through crisis and that sort of thing, you'll have a broader audience and be able to have a greater impact and help more people than you would if you did it in the order that you thought you wanted to go. And what's bearing that out for me is within this last month, within the last couple of weeks, I've had 4 different clients for animal communication call me up, because that's one of the things I do. If you go to my website, AletheaJacob.com, you'll see way down on the list, oh yeah, she does animal communication. Well, out of all the things I do, those have been the main clients for me this past month. And I'm like, animals, and both cats and dogs, and some that were ready to leave or getting ready to leave, and some that weren't, and some that were lost, and some that weren't. And so I'm like, this is really interesting. So I'm not trying to force the agenda and saying, I'm not going to do animal communication. I wasn't even marketing myself particularly with that. I went on, there's an app called PetWorks, and they reached out to me and said, hey, we see you used to be a dog trainer. Do you want to list anything else you do with dogs on this national site? And if people want to contact you, they can. I'm like, yeah, sure. Animal communication. So I wrote up a little thing about what I do with animal communications, both those that have passed as well as the ones that are with us. And that right now is where Spirit is going, wink, 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 right? Because that's where I'm not actively trying to get them. They're seeking me out. And so I'm like, all right, I guess there's some validity to let me focus on the animal book and helping people with animals, as well as obviously, I hope I'm helping you people, and who's ever listening here, with sharing some of the stories and the insights or asking questions that might get you thinking in different ways and hopefully inspire you or give you some answers to things you've been thinking about. So I still love helping people. That to me is the biggest thing. But you know what? Isn't part of our purpose being good stewards on this earth? We're supposed to help ourselves, help each other, help all the people, help all the animals, help the planet itself. And I laughed. I said, you know what? Living here in Wisconsin, I've planted an orchard. I have 60 trees I've planted that I tend to. I have a community garden with all kinds of vegetables that I plant and tend to, right? I have my animals that I take care of. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's the whole picture, right? Yeah, we take care of ourselves. We take care of our home. We take care of all the people that we interact with, right? That by our acts of kindness, by trying to always do the right thing, by being a benevolent force, a force for good whenever we can. If we can lighten somebody's load or add a little light or smile to their day, that's what we should be doing, right? So helping people, helping the animals, right? Whether it's just, acknowledging them, if you have pets in the home, giving them the love and attention, if you're rescuing or helping healing, whatever it happens to be, right? Or just in nature. I know people that they put food out for the squirrels, food out for the deer, food out for the wild animals that are in their neighborhoods. They put out food. That's kind of cool. And it's not the food to bait them in so they can shoot them and eat them, right? It's just they're doing the right thing to share. And I have friends who hunt and totally, understand that sometimes you have to thin the herds. And as long as they're honoring the animal and they're making use of the meat, which they are, I'm like, I have no trouble with that at all. But us being benevolent and taking care of the little piece of land that we live on, whether you have, a plant in your apartment or whether you have a garden around your house or you have a farm and you grow food for part of the country, we're still beholden to our promise to be good caretakers of our world. And our world includes people, the animals, the plants, everything that's around us. And that's why being a steward of our energy is so important, because that's the one thing, our energy field, our love, our intention, our thought forms that we're sending out, those impact everything we come in contact with. Other people, the animals, the plants. I did an experiment once years ago. I had a metaphysical teacher. He was a hoot. And he basically said, I want you to buy 3 roses. Put 1 in water, leave 1 out on the table, and put 2 in water, but separate vases, and 1 on the table. So 1 without anything that it needs. And he says, I want you to take one of the ones that's in the water, and I want you to just yell at it and tell it it's the ugliest rose and that it stinks. And, how dare it even call itself a rose, and all kind, whatever you wanted to say negative to this thing. Right. And then to the other one that's in water, it's like, oh, you are so beautiful. I love how you smell. You're so amazing how your petals open up. I love how velvety you feel. Positive stuff. And then the one that was not in the water said, just pick it up and just give it some energy. It doesn't have water or anything, but just give it energy. Don't say anything. Let it just be neutral and see what happens. And it was kind of like trying to be, thank you, Tristan, trying to be like a control group one. So it doesn't have water. It wasn't getting love. It wasn't getting hate. It was just there. Well, that one without the water, it died, and it just kind of shriveled up a little bit, as expected, right? The one that I was yelling at and telling terrible things to, even though it was in the water and it had everything it should have needed, it died and shriveled up before the one that had nothing. And then the one that I was telling what a beautiful rose was, that little sucker, it bloomed, it opened, it stayed open so long. I'm like, you are like the Hanukkah bush rose, it just kept going and going and going. So talk to your plants if you have plants, right? Our energy literally does impact it. Talk to your food. Talk to your water. Send love to the things that you're bringing into your body. There was a guy named Dr. Emoto. What was his last name? Emoto. Do you remember Messages from Water? I think maybe his last name was Emoto. Anyway, there was a Japanese doctor, researcher, who actually looked at water crystals from water that was prayed over, water that was cursed, water that people sent positive and said positive things, right? And then he took a droplet of those water, put it on a slide and looked at a microscope and took pictures of them. Blew my mind. These pictures show when you sent love and light and positivity to the water crystals looked amazing. They looked like they were filled with light. And just like the shapes that they took of the crystalline form was like, knocked my socks off. The ones that were cursed at and told terrible things and were polluted oh my God, that water, the crystals were all like broken and fragmented and ridiculous. So, if you take your glass of water and before you drink it, you just imagine sending love and energy and healing into whatever it is that you're then going to drink and take into your body. Or go back to a lot of us from a more religious point of view, we're taught to say grace and give thanks over the food before we ate it, right? Well, I remember a Reiki master friend of mine, when we go out to eat, he would actually put his hands over his plate and he would send energy to it. So he was thanking the creator. We would thank the farmers who harvested the vegetables and thank the spirit of the animals that sacrificed so that we could eat the meat or the fish or whatever it was we were eating. But he would actually put energy with intention into the food so it would help to strengthen his body and heal his body. And so it was not only the thankfulness and the gratitude that you normally have with grace, But there was also this sense of, if I'm going to bring this into my body, I'm going to program it to be a servant of my body, to help me be the strongest, best me I can be. And you know what? Until right this minute, guys, I have been forgetting to do that myself on a regular basis. I'm like, I could have had a V8. What was I thinking? I could have been blessing myself for how many meals have I had over the years, right? How many things have I drunk without thinking twice about what I'm putting into? Well, I may think what I'm putting into my body, but what am I putting into it before it comes into my body? So, we have much more power to use our energy to bless ourselves, to bless our homes, our lives, our bodies, everybody who's around us, people, animals, plants, and then extend that out to the planet, to this universe that we're a part of, right? If you can think it, it goes there. Where your thoughts go, energy flows. So if you want to send love and healing to the Pleiades, go for it. To Arcturus, go for it. To Orion, go for it. To whatever's beyond that, go for it, right? And if there's no time or space, send love back to Atlantis, to Lemuria, to any ancient civilization, to the ancient Egyptians, and say, hey, by the way, what was that guy's name? Imhotep. Okay, hey, Imhotep, vibration of Imhotep. You were like this high priest, science, engineering, like guru. Like, hey, I'm sending you some love. Come inspire my dreams, right? Hey, Nikolai Tesla, you were in touch with some really radical shit. Come down to me in my dreams, inspire me, right? We can do that with our energy, right? So we have to stop limiting ourselves. We have to, be much more proactive with our intentions, with our thoughts, and with our energies. And be intentional, like, oh my God, this intentional hour went flying by again. But thank you so much, you guys, for being with me on this journey. I hope you don't get whipped with all the woo.
Mary and I was just talking about that this morning. And can you imagine about how relationships, about hollering and screaming, how that affects your health? It does play a part.
Oh, yeah. Which is why almost every great master talks about the importance of peace, cultivating peace in your life and having joy and creativity. Because if you have peace and joy and creativity happening, you don't get distracted by a lot of the drama and the rest of the BS going on. You're like, yeah, that doesn't affect me. That's not me. That's not my reality, right? You create your own reality, even if you're in this little island amidst this crazy storm, right? So take control, guys. How about for this week? Be extra kind to yourself. Bless your food, bless your drink, bless your life, control your energy, send it to serve you and others, and see what happens. Just be playful with it. Have a sense of curiosity. This is not a guilt trip. This is like, oh shit, I forgot to do it. No, none of that. This is just go for it. Whenever you remember, go for it and see how and if anything changes. And if you like it, do it more. And if you don't bother, because certain tools and techniques are unique for each person. You're laughing, Grizz. Sorry. I know I cursed again. My New York mouth. I'm so sorry.
No,
you can bleep
it. It happens. But ladies and gentlemen, 9:00 tonight.
Yep.
We have, excuse me, a picture of Bigfoot holding an orb. Tune in for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Way cool. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. God bless y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Be kind. Do something fun. And we'll see you next week. Chris, have a nice show tonight.
Around the world. God bless. See you at 9.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.